I've been on this earth for 76 years, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you only truly appreciate your health when it starts to falter. I used to be the guy who thought checkups were a waste of time, that doctors were for the weak, that a strong body didn't need any maintenance. I spent 43 years as a long-haul truck driver, crisscrossing the country, proud of my stamina, my strength, my independence. I never stopped, never complained, never thought I needed anything beyond my own grit. And you know what that stubbornness almost cost me? Everything. It almost cost me seeing my grandkids grow up, almost cost me celebrating 50 years of marriage with my wife, almost cost me the chance to be here right now telling you this story. It happened when I was 62. Just a regular Tuesday, nothing special, another day on the road like any other. I was driving down the highway when I felt this pressure in my chest. It wasn't pain, more like someone had placed a heavy stone right there. I broke out in a cold sweat, felt dizzy, but I did what I always did. I ignored it. I figured it was just fatigue, that it would pass, that I was too tough for any weakness. I managed to pull the truck over to the shoulder before I blacked out. When I woke up, I was in the hospital, and my wife was by my side, her eyes red from crying. The doctors told me I'd had a heart attack. A heart attack. Me, who always thought I was indestructible. They also said that if I'd had the right checkups, the ones everyone over 60 should get, they would have seen the signs. They would have seen that my arteries were clogged, that my heart had been screaming for help for a long time, that I was heading for a disaster waiting to happen. You know when something's not right, don't you? Maybe it's not your heart, maybe it's something else, but you feel it. That fatigue that won't quit, that ache you push aside, that feeling that your body just isn't the same anymore, but you just power through because you're scared of what you might find out. Tell me in the comments, are you also putting off that exam you know you should take? Write this: I'm putting it off because I'm afraid of finding out that. And finish with what scares you. It doesn't have to be long, just needs to be honest. Because when we put our fears into words, they lose a little of their power over us. And your comment might give someone else the courage to book that appointment they've been avoiding. So tell me, what are you putting off? The truth nobody wants to hear is that ignoring a problem doesn't make it disappear. For years, I convinced myself that if I didn't look for trouble, I wouldn't find any, as if a disease needed my permission to exist, as if closing my eyes to danger made it vanish. A lie, the most dangerous lie we tell ourselves. The problem was there, growing, developing, waiting for its moment to take me down, and it almost succeeded. The doctors explained that there are 5 essential tests that every person over 60 should have done regularly. 5 simple tests that can save your life, and I hadn't done a single one, not one, because I thought I knew more than the doctors, because I was too proud to admit I was getting older, because I was afraid of what I might discover. Let me tell you how I ended up almost dying out of sheer stubbornness. When I was about 55, I started feeling some strange things. Nothing major, just occasional twinges in my chest. More fatigue than usual after lifting heavy things. Shortness of breath when climbing stairs. Things any sensible person would see a doctor about. But not me. I figured it was just age creeping in, that it was normal, that everyone felt that way. My wife begged me to go to the doctor. My kids insisted. But I always had an excuse. Too busy, No time. I'd make an appointment next week. Next week turned into next month. Next month turned into next year. And so it went for 7 years, until my body just couldn't take it anymore and knocked me flat. The first test they told me about was the electrocardiogram. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's a simple test where they place some electrodes on your chest and measure how your heart is beating. It takes 15 minutes, doesn't hurt at all, and can show if there are any irregularities in your heart rhythm, if there's strain, if there are signs that something isn't working right. If I'd had this test at 60, when I started feeling those strange fatigue spells I ignored, the doctors would have seen that my heart was already struggling. They would have put me on medication, changed my diet, advised me to change my lifestyle, and maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't have woken up in that hospital with my wife crying beside me, thinking she lost me. After I got out of the hospital, I went back to get that test done properly. The doctor laid the paper in front of me and explained each little wave, each peak, each dip. He showed me where the problem was, where my heart had been stressed, where the scar from the heart attack had been. And you know what shocked me the most? He said that what I was seeing there, all that damage, had started years ago. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was a slow process of deterioration that I could have stopped if I'd just had a routine checkup. That's when it really hit me. It wasn't bad luck, it wasn't fate, it wasn't bad genes. It was my choice. The choice to ignore, to postpone, to think I was too special to need medical care. Then there's the stress test, the one on the treadmill. I used to laugh at that, thought it was ridiculous to be walking on a treadmill hooked up to wires. Foolish pride. This test shows how your heart behaves when you exert yourself, if it can handle the pressure, if there's a problem that only shows up when you're moving. It's different from a regular EKG because a lot of people have hearts that look perfect at rest but show problems when they need to work harder. And guess what? That was exactly my case. My heart worked reasonably well when I was still, but when I needed it, when I exerted myself, it couldn't keep up. And I never knew, because I never took the test. When I finally took the stress test, months after the heart attack, as part of cardiac rehab, it was terrifying to see how weak my heart had become. I couldn't even last 5 minutes on the treadmill before I started feeling short of breath and experiencing chest pain. 5 minutes. Me, who thought I was strong, who lifted heavy stuff all day, who worked 12, 14 hours straight, and I couldn't manage 5 minutes on a treadmill. The doctor stopped the test, looked at me, and said I was incredibly lucky to be alive. He said he knew cases of people who died making much smaller efforts than what I did every day at work. And I just sat there, sweaty, exhausted, ashamed, thinking about all the times I'd put off taking this simple test. The third is the echocardiogram. This one uses ultrasound to actually see your heart working, to check if the valves are opening and closing properly, if the muscle is contracting as it should, if any part of the heart is weak or damaged. It's like a moving picture of your heart. After my heart attack, when they did this exam on me, they discovered that a part of my heart had been damaged, that I'd lost pumping capacity. Information that would have been crucial to have beforehand, not afterward. Information that could have saved me all that suffering. The doctor showed me the echocardiogram images and I was fascinated. You could see my heart beating there on the screen. You could see every movement, every contraction. And you could also see the area that was still dead, destroyed by the heart attack. It was a dark spot in the middle of all that working muscle. The doctor explained that that part would never function again, that it was permanent damage, and that the rest of my heart would have to work harder to compensate. I sat there looking at that image, thinking that it was a direct result of my choices. Every barbecue I'd eaten without a second thought, every cigarette I'd smoked in my younger years, every time I'd ignored a symptom, it was all there, recorded in that dark spot on my heart. The fourth test is the full cholesterol panel. Everyone talks about cholesterol, but few people really understand it. It's not just about knowing if it's high or low. There are different types of cholesterol. There are triglycerides. There are a bunch of numbers that need to be in balance. My cholesterol had been sky high for years, and I didn't know it. It had been slowly clogging my arteries day by day, meal by meal. Those barbecues, that greasy diner food, all that carelessness, it all accumulated in my veins until one day there was no more room for blood to pass. A simple blood test would have shown this, a test that's inexpensive, that any clinic can do, that takes 5 minutes to draw. But I never did it because I figured it was nonsense, that it was just for hypochondriacs. The first time I saw my cholesterol results after everything, I was horrified by the numbers. Total cholesterol was 320, when ideal is under 200. LDL, that's the bad cholesterol, was 240, when it should have been below 100. Triglycerides were through the roof. And the worst part is the doctor told me those numbers didn't get there overnight. It took years to reach that point. Years during which I could have changed my diet, could have taken medication, could have prevented those fatty plaques from clogging my arteries. But I didn't know because I never got the test. And I didn't get it because I thought I didn't need it. The fifth test, and perhaps the most important for many people, is for diabetes. Fasting glucose, A1C, names that sound complicated but are simple to understand. Diabetes is a silent disease that slowly destroys your body. It damages your kidneys, your eyes, your nerves, your heart, and a lot of people have it and don't know. I didn't have diabetes. I got lucky there. But my friend João did. João was a truck driver like me. We worked together for 20 years, drove all over Brazil side by side. He also never got checkups, also thought it was a waste of time. He found out he had diabetes when he was already nearly blind, when his kidneys were failing, when it was too late to reverse all the damage. He died at 67, 3 years after he found out. 3 years of suffering that could have been avoided if he'd just gotten a simple blood test. João's story still haunts me. We were so similar, him and I. Same profession, same stubbornness, same silly pride in thinking we were too tough to get sick. The difference is, I was lucky to survive my heart attack. He didn't have the same luck with diabetes. I remember the last time I visited him in the hospital, he was so thin I could barely recognize him. His eyes were vacant, dull, because his vision was almost gone. His legs were swollen because his kidneys weren't working right anymore. And you know what he told me? He said if he could go back in time, the first thing he'd do was schedule all the tests he always refused to take. He said he'd trade everything, all his pride, all his stubbornness, all his conviction that he was invincible, for a chance to have caught the disease early, when it was still manageable. You know what's most infuriating? It's not even the disease itself. It's knowing that we had a chance to prevent it, to control it, to treat it before it got serious. It's knowing that the information was there, available, accessible, but we chose to ignore it. We chose to believe we were special, that we were different, that the rules of biology didn't apply to us. I see so many people doing that today, people my age, even younger, who refuse to get tested because they're afraid of what they might find, as if not knowing makes it less real, as if ignorance is protection. It's not. Ignorance is just a way of deceiving yourself until it's too late. After that heart attack, my life changed completely. I had to stop working. I had to take a bunch of medications. I had to change everything about my diet. But you know what changed the most? My mindset. I realized that what I called strength was actually stubbornness. What I called courage was irresponsibility. Because being truly strong is having the humility to take care of yourself. It's having the wisdom to accept help. It's having the courage to face reality instead of running from it. Today, I get all my tests done religiously. Every 6 months, I'm there in the doctor's office getting my checkups. And you know what? I found out it's not so bad. In fact, it's even reassuring because now I know what's happening with my body. I'm not living in uncertainty anymore, in hidden fear, in that anxiety of not knowing. The first few months after the heart attack were the hardest of my life. I had to relearn everything. I had to relearn how to eat because I couldn't eat half the things I always did anymore. I had to relearn how to exercise, starting with incredibly short walks that left me wiped out. I had to relearn how to handle my emotions because I'd developed a terrible anxiety that my heart would stop again at any moment. I had to go to therapy, something I never imagined I'd do. I had to learn to take my medication at the right times, which sounds simple but demands discipline. And I had to learn to ask for help, to accept that I wasn't the strong, independent man I'd always thought I was. My wife was my salvation during that period. She was the one who always begged me to get checkups, who always worried about my health while I ignored everything. She was the one who took care of me with infinite patience. She prepared my meals, sticking to all the restrictions, reminded me to take my meds, came with me to doctor's appointments, and encouraged me with my rehab exercises. And never, not once, did she rub it in that I'd been warned. She never said, "I told you so," or blamed me for being stubborn. She just took care of me with love. And that made me realize how selfish I'd been all those years. Because my refusal to take care of my health didn't just affect me. It affected her. It affected my kids. It affected the whole family. My granddaughter asked me the other day why I get so many checkups now when I never used to get any. She's 10, so curious, so sharp. I explained to her that I learned the hard way that our bodies are like a house. If you never look for problems, never do maintenance, never fix those small leaks, one day the whole house collapses. And then it might be too late to fix it. She understood perfectly, and you know what she told me? That when she grows up, she's going to take good care of her health because she doesn't want to go through what Grandpa went through. And that filled me with hope because it means she won't make the same mistakes I did. It means my suffering at least served as a lesson for someone. I have a friend, Carlos, who's 64 now. We used to work together before my heart attack. When all that happened to me, he got scared. He started getting checkups, started taking care of himself. He found out he had high blood pressure, that his cholesterol was starting to creep up, that he showed signs of prediabetes, all in the early stages, all still manageable. He changed his diet, started walking every day, took the medications the doctors prescribed. Today, he's doing great, healthier than a lot of younger folks. And he always thanks me, says I saved his life without even knowing it, because my bad example became a good lesson for him. My mistake became learning for someone else. And that, in a strange way, makes it all worth it. But there are still people who resist. There are people who hear my story and still think it will be different for them, that they're the exception, that they're luckier, that they're stronger. And I understand, because I was that person for 62 years of my life. But now, from this side, I see how foolish it is, how it's like playing Russian roulette with your own life, because you might get lucky once, twice, 10 times, but one day luck runs out, and when it runs out with your health, there's often no coming back, no second chance, no way to hit a reset button. The other day I ran into an acquaintance at the supermarket. He must be around 62, 63. He looked tired, a bit pale. I asked him how he was doing, and he said he was always tired lately, that he felt some chest pain sometimes, but it was just work stress. My blood ran cold, because that was exactly what I used to say, exactly the same excuse. I sat down with him right there in the supermarket aisle and told him my whole story. I showed him the scar from the surgery, talked about the checkups I never got, about the heart attack, everything. And I begged him to go to the doctor. I pleaded. He looked a bit awkward, said he'd think about it, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Fear of finding out something was wrong. And I understand that fear, but I also know that fear can kill. Do you think you're invincible? Do you think your body will hold up forever without you taking care of it? Let me tell you a hard truth. Your body is aging at this very moment. With every passing second, your cells are getting older. Your organs are working a little slower. Your systems are losing efficiency. This isn't to scare you. It's just biology. It's the reality of being alive. And the more you ignore it, the more you put off taking care of yourself, the harder it becomes to fix things when something breaks. Your heart beats about 100,000 times a day. 100,000 times. And it does that without you asking, without you thinking, without you thanking it. But it's not eternal. It's not indestructible. And it needs care. If you're over 60 and you're not getting regular checkups, you're playing with fire. And it's not just your life. It's the lives of everyone who loves you. Because when you fall, when you get sick, when you die too soon from something that could have been prevented, you're not just hurting yourself. You're hurting your children who will have to deal with the premature loss. You're hurting your spouse who will be left alone too soon. You're hurting your grandchildren who will grow up without you. You're hurting everyone around you who loves you and needs you. I was lucky. I survived the heart attack. I'm here 14 years later telling this story. But how many people aren't that lucky? How many people die from their first heart attack, their first cardiac arrest, their first stroke? How many families are destroyed because someone thought checkups were nonsense, doctors were a fuss, and health was guaranteed? I visit cemeteries and see gravestones of people who died at 60, 65, 70. And I think to myself, how many of those deaths could have been avoided if that person had just gotten a simple checkup, a checkup that costs less than a dinner out, less than a new shirt, less than any of the nonsense we spend money on every day. The healthcare system isn't perfect, I know. There are waits, there are delays, there's red tape. But heart exams, diabetes tests, cholesterol checks, all of that is available through our public health services at community clinics, at affordable health centers. There's no excuse about money, no excuse about access. The only real excuse is fear. And I understand fear. I really do. Because I had that fear too. Fear of finding out something was wrong. Fear of having to change my life. Fear of facing the reality of my own mortality. But you know what's scarier than discovering you have a health problem? It's discovering it too late, when there's nothing more you can do, when your options have run out, when you realize you threw away your chance to save yourself. There's a statistic the doctor told me that shocked me. He said almost half of men over 60 in this country have never had a complete cardiac exam. Half. And that most heart attack deaths in that age group could have been prevented with proper diagnosis and treatment. We're talking about thousands of lives lost every year due to sheer lack of prevention. Thousands of families torn apart. Thousands of stories cut short. Thousands of futures that will never happen. And all of this could be different if people simply got their checkups. If I could talk to my 55-year-old self, my 60-year-old self, I'd say this. Stop being stubborn. Stop thinking you're special. Stop ignoring the signs your body is giving you. Go to the doctor. Get the tests, all the tests they ask for. And when you find out something's wrong, because chances are something will be, don't panic. Be grateful you found out in time to do something about it. Be grateful you have the chance to change, to take care, to treat it. Because a lot of people don't get that chance. A lot of people only find out when it's already too late. Start exercising, even if it's just a 15-minute walk a day. Change your diet, even if it's just cutting back on excess salt and sugar. Take the medications the doctor prescribes every single day without skipping. Sleep well, drink water, manage your stress. Quit smoking if you smoke. Cut back on drinking if you drink too much. These things seem obvious, they seem simple, but they make a huge difference. And more important than anything, get your checkups. EKG, stress test, echocardiogram, cholesterol, blood sugar. These 5 tests, done regularly, can add years, maybe even decades to your life. Today, I wake up grateful every day, grateful to be alive, to see my grandkids grow up, to hug my wife, to walk in the park, to feel the sun on my face, simple things I never valued when I thought I had infinite time. I don't have the same strength I used to. I can't do everything I used to. My heart is weaker. It needs care. It needs attention. But I'm here. I'm alive. I'm present. And that's only possible because today I take care of myself. Because today I get my checkups. Because today I no longer ignore the signs. Life after a heart attack is different. I won't lie. There are limitations I didn't have before. I get tired faster. I can't lift heavy things like I used to. I have to be careful about what I eat. But there are good things too. I've learned to appreciate time in a way I never did before. I've learned to value the right things. I spent my whole life chasing money, achievements, recognition, and almost died without enjoying any of it. Today I know what truly matters are the simple moments. Breakfast with my wife, my grandkids' smiles, a chat with a friend. Those things that cost nothing but are worth everything. The irony of getting older is you only understand the value of health when it starts to falter. When you're young, you think you'll last forever. When you hit 60, you start to realize time is running out. And when you hit 70, you realize every day is a gift. I wasted so much time worrying about things that didn't matter. I worked too much, neglected my health, ignored the warnings, and I almost paid the ultimate price for it. Don't let that happen to you. Don't be stubborn like I was. Don't ignore your body like I ignored it. You're hearing this now and probably thinking you'll get the tests later, you'll schedule it for next week, you'll deal with it when you have more time. Don't do that. Do it now. Pick up the phone, call your doctor's office, schedule the tests today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because tomorrow you'll have another excuse and then another and another, and when you realize it, 5 years will have passed and you'll have done nothing, and then it might be too late. I did that for 7 years. 7 years of putting it off, making excuses, promising myself I'd do it later. And those 7 years almost cost me everything. If you made it this far, it's because something in this story has resonated with you. Maybe you're seeing yourself in my mistake. Maybe you're realizing you're doing the same thing I did, ignoring your health because you're afraid to look closely. You're not alone in this. Thousands of people do it every day. But you can be different. You can learn from others' mistakes instead of having to make your own. This channel exists for people like you, people who are reaching an age where the body starts to collect on all the neglect. Subscribe to follow more real stories, more lessons I've learned from my life and from the lives of people I've known. Like this video if it made you think, even if hearing some truths hurt. And tell me in the comments, when was the last time you had a complete checkup? If you can't remember, that's a sign it's time. And if you're putting it off, tell me why. Let's build a support network where we help each other take better care of our health. Because it's harder alone, but together we can do it. Time is ticking for all of us. Don't waste what you've left by ignoring something as important as your own health. Schedule your tests today. Don't wait to wake up in a hospital like I did to realize that life is too fragile to be wasted.